where to go to college. But we also addressed an important issue that is actually part of this presidential campaign, perhaps not the front-runner issue, but this issue of, we call it the gainful employment rule, but it's really about these for-profit colleges that are out there that are contributing to such a high student debt load in the nation. Right now, student debt is the second highest form of debt behind mortgages. That's never happened in our nation's history. Now it's the second most, and so students are just suffering under mountains of debt. And often they're going to these schools where they're not getting a quality education, and they're not able to get a remarkable degree afterwards. So they're not able to employ themselves. So in the agenda, we say we want to continue to hold these for-profit schools accountable. We think that's important because one of the candidates running for president has certainly called for continuing that. But another one's actually run one of these for-profit universities. And that's something that's really troubling to us because that's the kind of thing that we're worried about.
I was just going to ask you, you're not talking about Trump University,
That's what I'm talking about, absolutely. But not just that one, there's plenty of others. And the problem is when they're for-profit, sometimes they lose the focus on education and they think about the profit. And then what happens is the kids get taken for a ride. They suffer because they have a mountain of debt, student loans that they have to pay off. They didn't get a quality education, which is really the only way they're going to be able to pay off that loan. So that's important that we address that. But we are making progress. It's just that we have to be smart with our resources and ensure that every child can get a quality education.
Thank you so much. We talked about preschool, we talked about college education, but what about K through 12? Tom, you have something to say about that?
Thanks, Megan. I want to expand on what Brent said. This largely do nothing Congress, as you know, in December of last year, passed a really important bill, the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. In some ways, it was a giant leap forward because for the first time, it's a clear aspiration of eliminating the educational achievement gap as the main goal of the legislation. But by the same token, as it made that an aspiration, it failed to put in place strong federal authority, strong federal power to ensure that our localities and states would attend to subgroups like English learners and Latino students and make sure that those gaps are closing. I saw and I still see my former boss, former mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio Villaraigosa here. I'm glad he's here because he made it a #1 priority of his administration, the first in Los Angeles to make it a #1 priority to improve education at the local level. The problem is we don't have Mayor Villaraigosa around the country, so we need a strong federal role. And right now we have an administration that's stepping forward in the aftermath of passage of the Every Student Succeeds Act to put in place strong accountability measures so that the federal government can step in if its dollars are not being used to address those achievement gaps. And it's facing opposition from leaders in the Senate and in the House. We need to have elected officials at the federal level who understand we cannot depend only on localities and states to address these educational issues, but we need a strong federal role that goes beyond providing just money, but making sure that every school system is addressing the needs of every subgroup and bringing everyone up to the best of their abilities in education achievement.
Well, can I just add one piece on that? I just think it's really important. This has been this issue of education, hands down, anytime you poll our community, no matter what, the economy, immigration, education always seems to be in that top of tier of issues. But this is important, in particular, to understand what this new law, the Every Student Succeeds Act, they call it ESSA, and it does take away more. It provides less federal oversight and accountability. It does allow for the states and local school districts to step in, and it becomes even more important until we can get regs that provide more of that federal accountability. The fact is that it becomes more important for our parents and our community leaders to be very engaged and informed about how to hold those local school districts and state plans accountable. And while we didn't get everything we wanted in that bill, for the first time, we have accountability measures for how states and local districts are going to track English learners. That's a huge a step forward for us. But it will not mean much if our parents and leaders at the local and state level aren't using that data to track the progress of our community. All of a sudden, that responsibility really relies on us. I know there's a lot of efforts, including Univision and others, who are trying to help us elevate the awareness and provide more opportunities for us as coalitions to inform and really train our parents and community leaders to do that tracking and to hold those districts accountable, it's essential if we're going to really make sure that our children have and students have every chance at success.
Thank you very much, Janet. Brent, at the February launch of the public policy agenda, you talked about the importance of working in unity to realize this comprehensive blueprint to serve the interests of the Latino community. We've seen so many issues discussed here. In the existing divisive political climate, how do you propose that this be achieved?
Well, I have to say I'm really proud of this coalition. We've been around for quite some time. We actually started with the Reagan era. And we've been putting out this agenda every single year. And our goal is, of course, here available for you to take. I hope everyone takes a copy of it. It's extremely comprehensive. We've never put together a better agenda than we have this cycle. And the agenda was meant for the incoming administration, no matter who that person is, to take this and see what the policy priorities are of the Latino community. And what's amazing about it is we're really diverse of organizations. There's organizations that work in education, health, all different types of issues. And yet we come together, we hash out what are the policy priorities of our community, and we do this through consensus so that we substantially agree, most of us, not just about every plank that's in the agenda, which is remarkable. And yet we present this to the president, and we hope that they enact as much of it as possible. We're going to be working, of course, throughout this conference and throughout the election period, and of course into the first 100 days of the new president to make sure that we drive this agenda home. But the group here is really unified, and in addition to the agenda, we have a lot of campaigns that we work on together. For example, Latinos United for Immigration, Latinos United for Healthcare, Latinos United for a Fair Economy, and so many others, where we're focused on key issues that we think we have to drive out and try to get something passed to Congress. So the great news is, despite the adversity on the outside, the community, I think, has never been more united. And it's because of this coalition and the willingness of all the organizations to sit down together and to say, set aside our differences, work together for the common good, and because of that, we're really a strong team, and I'm really proud.
Thank you so much. Now, getting to the end, towards the end of our discussion, I noticed that as we went issue by issue, there seemed to be a consensus that one of the solutions to all of these issues is comprehensive immigration reform, no matter which one it was. Now, about a little over a year ago, I had an interview with Hillary Clinton, and I asked her, how can we make this happen? And she said, elect more Democrats. Now, is that really what needs to happen? I mean, is it really what is happening in this country that we could not have the other side see the stories that we're told here and see Latinos not as a threat, but as human beings and people who actually can contribute so much? You want to take that one?
I want to take that one.
Okay.
The solution is not to elect more Democrats. The solution is to elect more elected officials who are accountable to our community. Be they Republicans or Democrats. The fact is, we need people in both political parties to advance our agenda. We cannot be beholden to any one political party, which is why I am so angry about this current election cycle. Because what we are seeing is an investment in mobilizing Latino and immigrant voters in only a handful of states. People with a partisan objective to achieve their partisan outcome on November 8th. And on November 9th, they will disappear. Without having built true political power in our communities. And that's what the National Hispanic Leadership Agenda is about. Building political power of our communities from the grassroots up, so that we, on January 20th, can have the political power to insist on the implementation of all the policies that we are talking about today, be it a Republican or a Democrat. That's what this is.
Thank you. The important thing is, how do you get that message across? I mean, we have told unbelievable stories, human stories. How can you put a face and a name and a real story into this political discussion?
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say. Part of this is not just about elections. It's about educating the American people about the contributions that Latinos are making to this country. In my work on behalf of private and seasonal farm workers, the large majority, 80 or 85% of farm workers are Latino. The majority of them are undocumented immigrants. They are feeding us. so that it has an impact on what the elected officials then do.
So you say influence public opinion. That's the best way to go for it.
Well, I think this is what we're seeing play out here is not really, yes, we're seeing this terrible rhetoric about our community, and this played out in this presidential election cycle. And it is literally an attack on our community. But more than that, what we're seeing is that our narrative is being hijacked by others, and somehow we're being redefined in terms with a broad brush about who we are as a community and our contributions to this country. And we cannot let others define who we are. You know, we're not anybody's punching bag here, and we have to recognize that we have the power to punch back through our vote. Because in a democracy, that is where you can exercise the biggest amount of power. But it is that narrative that is changing if we don't lift up our voices to remind people of the contributions and of the way that we have helped to make this country great. We are ceding that space, both not just politically, but socially, to others. And we need to make sure that we're accountable ultimately for that, how that happens.
Jessica?
I want to drive home the point that we're looking to build political power, that we look to build the political power of Latinas. Because women are the drivers of families and communities in this country. And Latinas, or women in general, register and turn out in higher numbers than our male counterparts, and Latinas register and turn out in higher numbers than our male counterparts. And we're bringing our families to the fold. We're making sure our partners are registering. We're making sure our tias and tios are coming out. I want to underscore the need to invest in the Latino community to ensure that we all have political power in this community.
Just a quick, I know we need to close soon, Marielena, before your remarks. Think about this important question that you raised, Marielena, on the issue of immigration. Why is immigration so important for this nation? And why is immigration so important for Latinos? What are those elements? 11 million undocumented workers in the most important nation in the world is not a mistake. It's public policy. And we need to ask the question, who benefits from having 11 million vulnerable workers that can be exploited and deported when they try to organize, and when people that we constantly see that their labor rights, their human rights, their civil rights are violated. We need to ask those questions. Now, when we talk about the issue of immigration, yes, it's a national issue. When we talk about the negative elements of immigration, it's something that drastically affects the Latino community. 97% of the people that are deported are Latinos. SB 1070 all the way to HB 56 increased racial profiling against Latinos. Hate crimes against Latinos increased almost by 50% in the nation. Bullying in the schools with all this anti-immigrant element is really affecting our children. So those are the elements when we talk about immigration and how it affects everything. It affects the economy. Being racially profiled when a Latino worker, especially in some industries, are applying for jobs. How this anti-immigrant element affects education, health, access to all the benefits. So that's why this element in this conversation of immigration is so critical from that perspective.
Definitely. I know that we're running out of time. I want to say something to avoid the same time.
I'd like to reemphasize again, we all have a political will. Talk about political I was saying that we have a political will, as you can notice here, you can hear, and we talked about political accountability of people enforcing those policies. But remember that the enforcement takes place at a federal government career level. And again, and to reemphasize, when we talk about this, let's not forget about the federal workers. They don't have that political knowledge of what's going on, what they need, what those policies mean for a community. They don't have it in the heart and the soul and the spirit of doing those policies. It's not going to happen as well, as efficient as we want it to. And I understand that federal workers is not a sexy issue, but believe me, it can be very important. Please keep that in mind.
I just want to add one little thing to what Arturo was saying, and I agree. It doesn't matter we're not talking about Democrats and Republicans. We're talking about our community, as Janet was mentioning, going out to vote. What I would expand is going out to vote for those leaders that are running from our community in those elected positions, because they are the ones that have lived our reality and our challenges, and they are the best voice to represent us in state capitals and in Capitol Hill.
Thank you very much. I think we've come to the conclusion of this. I want to thank, of course, NHLA for inviting me to participate in the event. It's very interesting to see all the different issues that are being discussed here. And like I said since the beginning, I've always felt that I am part of the community that I also report to and for and about. So on behalf of that community, I want to thank you and let you know that I feel so much better knowing that you have our banners, so that there's someone out there to protect us. We do report about people and we talk to them, but we also listen to them. And what I have been hearing, what many of us in our industry have been hearing, is that some Latinos are motivated to go out and vote, but a lot of them are very disappointed. And we've seen that in the last 2 elections. They feel that hostility from one side, and from the other side, they feel that they're being taken for granted, or they just don't trust the other side. So I think it's important that everyone, as leaders, and I guess including us in the media, even if we have to put up with being called activists instead of advocates, instead of journalists, but if that's what it takes, so be it. I think that Rubén Salazar once said that, right? When he was accused of being, many years ago, you were talking about the same thing. So I do think it's important to go out and motivate Latinos and have them understand that the numbers are important, that their vote does count. And another thing that I think is important is just, we started off this session telling stories. I think it's important for all of us in the media and all the community leaders in the community as a whole to continue telling those stories, because we are not just numbers, we're human beings, and we all have a story to tell. So thank you very much for being here.
María Elena, muchísimas gracias for moderating this space. And I want to thank all the leaders of the 40 national Latino organizations for all the effort. I read the names of all the people that are here, the leaders of all these fantastic organizations. We were joined by 3 more people from these organizations: Vilma Colón from the Puerto Rican Women Coalition, Lidia Camarillo from the Southwest Border Registration. We also have Yanira Cruz from the National Council of Aging. Voy a decir un par de palabras en español para terminar esta importante presentación. Esta coalición es el espacio de unidad que tenemos en el país. Este es un espacio donde decimos ya basta estos constantes ataques a nuestra comunidad latina, ya basta todo este odio contra nuestra comunidad, ya basta todas estas políticas racistas e inmigrantes que estamos viendo en el país. Es un llamado para decir ya basta. Y en unidad, estas 40 organizaciones estamos dando un llamado a las prioridades políticas para que haya atención en los temas de inmigración, educación, salud y todos los temas que afectan a nuestra comunidad a diario. Juntos y en unidad vamos a seguir colaborando para asegurarnos que tenemos un país más inclusivo, una democracia mejor que no excluye a las minorías, y para asegurarnos que somos un mejor país. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Univision for joining us in this important event. We're very excited. This is a space of unity. This is a space of collaboration. This is our 25th anniversary, and I want to thank the founder, like Raúl Izaguirre from the National Council of La Raza, and so many leaders that put this idea, this concept 25 years ago. And today, I think we have the strongest coalition that we've ever been in unity. We're presenting this vision for the future. We're calling to action. We're saying enough to these anti-immigrant messages, to this anti-Latino messaging in the nation that is affecting the quality of life of our children, the quality of life of our community. And a clear message: anyone who wants to be a president in the nation, there is a clear blueprint, and they have to be reflective of the Latino priorities, because these are reflective of the priorities of the nation. Finally, this doesn't happen just out of the blue, and I want to thank the fantastic team that make this happen, the NHLA team. Monica Ramirez, over there in the back. Thank you, Monica. Michael Cobra, who be collaborating with us. At this point, you are one more advocate, obviously, the fantastic Raven Group for all the work that you've been doing. Alisa Mora, Catherine Hincham, and Valerie Acevedo. I hope I didn't forget anything. Now, before we close, we're going to take a group picture with all the principals from the different organizations here on the stage. And then for the media, we're going to do one-on-one interviews in the room that is next door. And with that, we need to leave.